sometimes physically, and you seem to be facing some of the same old demons. I mean, I'll be honest with you. You know, I wake up, I see, I'm faith, but I'm learning. And I want to share with you tonight what God has given me that I can give to you, because we've got it, folks. We got to move on. We can't keep messing around. Let the demons come back into our house and mess around. Okay. So we're going tonight to dissect this. What is your demonic doorway? What is your entrance that the demons take to get to you? Okay. And this is what we're going to deal with. And you got people say, David, now wait a minute, hold it. Are you saying I'm possessed? Because I'm a Christian. You know, Christians are not possessed. Christians are oppressed. Well, let me explain something to you. All right. This possession, oppression thing has got to stop. It's demonic activity. Now, the only difference, I think, between a possessed person and an oppressed person is when you're oppressed, you know what's going on and you're really in pain. When you're possessed, you probably don't know what's really going on. All right. So I will agree that Christians cannot be possessed, but let's not get hung up on that. Let's talk about what's the doorway. Okay. For instance, think of it as a snake invasion. All right. A possessed person has snakes in their house, okay, inside, living with them. But folks, most Christians who are oppressed have snakes in their yard. So let me ask you a question. If you've got snakes in your yard, are you going to leave your house without worrying about getting bit? Or is anyone going to come and see you because you have snakes in your yard? No, because you have snakes in your yard. So we're going to drive those snakes out of the yard. We're going to find out tonight about the demonic activity, whether it be possession or oppression. We're going to deal with both of these topics. Okay. Now, as Christians, we need to understand that we have the ability and the power to forever evict a demon. Now listen to me. Evict a demon permanently, lock the door, and the demon never comes back. All right? The demon will never return. Matthew 12, 43, 45. Now, the scripture here is talking about a wicked generation, but this is very important for us to understand because I think it's a very good example of what happens when we evict a demon and he decides he's going to come back and take over. Verse 43, when an impure spirit comes out of a person, it goes through different places seeking rest and does not find it. Then it says, I will return to the house I left. When it arrives, it finds the house unoccupied, swept clean, and put in order. When it goes and takes with it, 7 other spirits more wicked than itself, and they go in and live there, and the final condition of that person is worse than the first. That is how it will be with this wicked generation. This is an example of how the generation, I mean, look at our society now. Look at it. You talk about, they didn't bring just 7 demons. They've got a whole, army of, Black Lives Matter and militants. I mean, this is, it's all over the place, right? But I want to talk about you and I spiritually, of how we can take a demon, evict it, cast it out, lock that door, and that demon comes back. He could have 100 other demon spirits with him, but he ain't going to get in. He's going to say, okay, boys, we got to go home. All right? We got to go home. So my question is tonight, what is your demonic doorway? What is the doorway that the demons are able to enter? Is it, drugs, alcohol addiction, pornography, bitterness, gossip, jealousy, fear? Here's a big one, worry. That's a big one for me, because when I worry, it brings in everything else. I mean, I start worrying, it brings in fear. It brings in bitterness. It brings in, you want to have a swig of this or a hit of that or whatever. I don't, but it makes you feel like that. Jesus dealt with worry. That's a demonic doorway. When we sit and we start trying to figure things out on our own with no resolution, and that's what worry is. When you keep thinking about something that has no resolution, it just goes right around the circle. So what's some popular ways the demons get through your door? Number one is your home. That's where you live. That's where each and every one of us live. That's our domain. Demons love our homes because that's where we sleep at night. And this is where demon activity is really ramped up, okay? Your television. Now, if you don't have a TV, but you got a computer, and on that computer, you've got all this stuff we've been talking about, all these programs, Netflix, and all this other garbage, that's how it enters into, through the eyes, into the mind. We have the mind of Christ. Social media. People that we live with. You say, David, I can't help it. I live with it. Well, yes, but you see, you have to understand that you are a child of God and that you are under a protection, but you cannot blatantly put yourself out there, okay? We must use discernment. Objects. Has anyone given you objects that you don't know? These, and we talk about cursed objects. I've got a special on David Heavener TV on cursed objects. Me and Stephen Bancars talk about this, okay? You can go there and find out the different objects in your home that could be cursed. Here's a big one, folks, medication. Okay, you see, demons get through our mind, into our mind of Christ, but instead of dealing with it spiritually and supernaturally, Big Pharma comes along and pops a pill. We take it, it numbs us out. And most people now, many Christians, are medicated. And the demon loves medications because when we are medicated, it distorts and numbs our mind of Christ. Sickness. Sickness is a doorway. How can it be a doorway? Well, my next guest we're going to be talking to had postpartum depression. And we're going to find out what postpartum depression had to do with her being possessed by a demon. I said possessed, not oppressed. We're going to talk to her about that. And postpartum, did it have anything to do with the demon entering into her? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Even if it didn't, we're going to talk about how sickness plays a part in demonic activity, whether it's around us or in us. My guest is Linda. Linda, you there with me?
Yes, I sure am, David.
Good.
Hello.
Good to have you.
Thank
Linda,
you.
you had a baby. You had postpartum depression. And
It was
for
my
those,
second baby.
second baby. For those of you guys don't know, postpartum depression is like guys like me. It's when a baby, it's called baby blues. It's after a woman has a baby and there's a depression. Okay, so you had postpartum depression, but something happened when you had that. Tell us what happened.
Well, I realized I was so weak. I mean, when I look back on it, I was weak spiritually, physically, emotionally, in every way. I was feeling very weak. And I was reaching for my vitamins one night. And I thought, okay, these vitamins maybe will help strengthen me. And as I was reaching for my vitamins, I sensed something around me. And I just said it out loud. I said, come on in. And I don't even know what prompted me, but I said it. And when I said, come on in, it turned out that it was a demon. And I knew it was a demon because what happened was, I remember my baby started crying and my husband was already in bed. And when I went to him, my voice got so low. I could not have made my voice get that low. And what happened was this demon started talking through me and my voice was so low, but then I would come back. And I, for some reason, I mean, I had I had a sister that had an alcoholic husband. She said, you know, I think we've had alcoholism in our family. And I found out at this Al-Anon meeting about the Lord's Prayer. And so whenever I would come back, I'd start saying the Lord's Prayer, but then the demon would come back and my voice would get very low. And I'd point at my husband and I'd say it, you know, just say it like this. And he was so scared. He was going like this, like, what is going on here? And
Linda,
yeah,
let's put a pause on it 1 second.
sure.
You're telling me a demon actually entered you. You were possessed. Is that
I
what you're
was.
saying?
I was.
Possessed. Okay.
I know I was.
You had postpartum depression. Do
Mhm.
you think the fact you were so weak, the fact you had the baby blues, do you think the devil used that opportunity to be able to enter inside of you?
I really do.
You do.
And at the time, I was not a believer.
Mhm.
And so looking back, I really believe I was just so weak in every aspect that
Okay.
it was very easy for this demon to enter me. Yeah.
So you know, Linda, many doctors, and I have several doctor friends. They'll argue, or they'll tell you and me that it's a chemical imbalance. It's a depression. That it's not a spiritual issue. Now, I want to read a few stats here for our gatherers so we can understand what's going on. 80% of the women have the baby blues. We're going to have PPD. 900,000 annually. But listen to this. 10% of the new fathers get this postpartum depression. Fathers get it. 50% of men whose wives suffer from PPD get it. Now, if this is just a chemical imbalance in a woman, how in the world does a man get it? Because he's not having the baby. So explain that to me. I know no one can explain it, so therefore it has to be a spiritual issue. And if it's a spiritual issue, that means the devil uses sickness and diseases, which are mostly spiritual, come from the spiritual place, to take authority. What do you think?
Yeah. Well,
so you were a Christian. You were not a Christian at this time, right?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. But now, Linda, you went to church all your life, like even as a little girl, like you were telling me, like starting at 4 or 5 years old. Not only did you go to church, but you were in church 5 and 6 days a week. I mean, it was not.
I was in church a lot. Yeah.
You lived in a church.
Yeah.
And how old were you when the demon entered you?
I was about 34 years old.
Okay, so if you started going to church, say when you were 4, and you were 34 when the demon entered you, you went 30 years without knowing the Lord, right?
That's right.
But going to church.
That's right. That's right.
So, okay, so let's go back to your story. We're gonna hit the pause button, take it off pause. So the demon was talking through you, and you were quoting the Lord's Prayer.
Yes, I was. And I couldn't remember the last line. And I said that to my husband at the time. I said, help me, help me. And my voice came back. I said, help me, help me. I can't remember the last line. I can't remember the last line. And I had never heard him say the Lord's Prayer before. So I didn't even know exactly what I was saying, but I kept saying, just help me with the last line. And then this demon came back and said, say it, like it was daring him to say it. And he finally said the last line about the kingdom, the power, and the glory. And as soon as my husband said it, the demon left. And I mean, I praise God that the demon wasn't in me for, but one evening, because it was torment. Yeah.
Okay, so the demon was in you that evening, but the demon left after that evening. Okay.
It left.
But no one cast the demon out. No one spoke any words and did any type of casting out the demon, right?
It was almost as if the Lord's Prayer and saying that one line is what finally cast it out.
You know
And
what?
we didn't even realize it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's the power of God. God, I mean, that's God's power. Especially sometimes when we don't know, we don't have people around us that understand demon warfare, which most of it, it's just not available because it's not taught in the churches. Okay, so when did you become a Christian?
It was about 6 years. I'm trying to think. I think it was about 5 or 6 years later.
Okay, so during that time of you having a demon in you and you becoming a Christian, did you think you were a Christian during that time, or what?
What I realized was, looking back now, I realized that God was using that depression to bring me closer to Him.
Okay.
Because when I ended up in the hospital, a friend of mine sent me some tapes that the nurses let me listen to all day. And at the time, I didn't realize it was Christian music. And all I could hear was the music. I couldn't hear the words. It was almost like my spiritual ears weren't open. And then when I came home and I started getting well, I could hear the words. And later on, I found out that my doctor, my psychiatrist, actually was a Christian and worked with different clinics that were Christian. Everything he did, the time I told him the only thing that I could take was the 12-step program. And so when he put me in the hospital, he put me with nurses and everyone that knew the 12 steps. So I do believe, and I know, the 12-step program talks about a higher power. And everything was just pointing me to that direction until I finally did.
Okay.
And what's interesting is God used that little girl that I had to actually, she was very instrumental in bringing me to Christ.
Okay, and we're going to talk about that, but I want to back up 1 second.
Yeah.
You went to church all these years,
Yeah.
and you thought you were a Christian. But my question, Linda, is how could you, not hear the Word of God and not really meet God, and yet be in church all your life? Can you explain?
When I look back at it, the church I was in, to me, was wasn't really a teaching church. I really wasn't getting to know the Bible.
Okay.
And it turned me off to Christianity, the church I was going to.
What kind of church were you in?
Well, some people say they look at it that it was a cult.
What was it?
And it was a group that called themselves B'nai Shalom, or Sons of Peace.
Okay.
And when I look back on it, after that, I decided, you know what? I don't even believe. I turned completely and said, I'm an atheist. I don't even believe in God. And then I came through and I said, oh, you know what? Maybe there is. So I became agnostic. So it was a whole process.
So it just tells you that it doesn't just people who come from the Catholic background or a very deep religious background. It can come from what you talk about, this B'nai Shalom, which really ties into Judaism. I don't want to get into that right now, but I wanted people to understand that where you were coming from as a person seeking God honestly. So before we go, I want to ask you about baby blues, about postpartum depression. It's the leading cause of death among new moms. I don't know if most people know that. 10% of PPDs end in suicide or infanticide, meaning they kill their babies. All right. What advice do you have for a woman out there that's listening, or a grandmother that has a daughter that's having a baby? What advice can you give them if they are having a child and they are and the devil could use this postpartum depression? What advice can you give them?
Number one, pray. That was the first thing that I started doing, was praying. And at first I said, I don't even know how to pray. But then here I had the Lord's Prayer, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to start praying the Lord's Prayer. So that was my first step. I started praying. And then I noticed when I started praying, more and more women that started coming around me were Christian. Or they, were, and I sometimes say believers.
So,
so the first thing I did was started praying.
so are you saying that if a grandmother's listening to this, to go and lay hands on her daughter who is having a baby, who just had a baby, or if the husband's listening, to go over and pray? Are you saying to lay hands and pray on the mother?
I always preface that because there are places in the Bible where it says talks about the laying of hands, but Jesus also says sometimes to be careful. And so what I've realized is, and this happened to me one time, I already had my hands on a little girl that was demon possessed. And later on, I was like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have laid hands on her. But
we're going to talk about that.
Be led by the Spirit and just pray.
Right. Well, now
pray. Yeah,
okay, but I'm talking about a father who's praying for his wife. I hope he's close enough to her to understand that. Or a grandmother who has a daughter who's pregnant. So I think we'll agree that we need to pray, folks, for women who are carrying children. You're talking 9 months. This is a major thing. Yes. And I believe the devil really gets into people's lives and really does a number into women's lives. And I just don't think that we as Christians take a pregnancy serious enough and understand it's the birthing of a new child. And if that demon knows that child is going to be a warrior for God, he does not want that child to be around. The child's going to be attacked even in the womb. So we need to lay hands, we need to pray, and we need to use the power of God.
And people did steer me to this doctor, and then later on I found out that he was a believer, and I didn't know it at the time. And the doctor, so I do believe that God's secrets many times are revealed to doctors too. So he helped me too. So I'm not telling people not to go to the doctor too, but yeah.
Absolutely. Linda, when we come back, we're going to be talking about something that rips my heart out. We're going to be talking about a child who is possessed by a demon. Can a child be possessed by a demon? We're talking to Linda. She was possessed by a demon. She has now cleaned her house out. She's locked her door. He hasn't gotten back in. Now we're going to be talking about children. Children, demons coming against children. Stay with me. We'll be right back. They've made many, many movies about aliens, but the question is, are they angelic or demonic?
The sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair and took wives of them all they chose. That's Genesis 6, verse 4, and that's the pivotal verse to understanding the true meaning of the flood, and that the sons of God were in fact angels, rebel angels who rebelled against God, took human women as wives, and their offspring were the Nephilim giants. There's a verse in Daniel chapter 2 where it says that in the end times they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. And I believe that's a reference to this attempt by the fallen angels to try and mingle their seed once again.
Why would an alien or demon want to abduct somebody or cause them to have this experience?
What that does is it makes the abductee feel very special and very important. I have worth, I have purpose. Here's this alien who most people don't even know exists, and he chose me.
Right.
He chose me to be the protector and guardian of this information.
Right.
You had this gentleman, and he was implanted many years ago by demonic forces.
Yeah, demonic forces. This guy was implanted and taken, abducted when he was 5 years old and implanted.
Wow.
You could cut this one with a razor knife, but implant 16, you could only cut it with a laser beam. So there's an evolution of these things. So when we actually extracted the implant from patient number 17, that was all done on film. We saw it on X-ray, CAT scan, ultrasound. It was giving off a radio frequency, a Gauss meter reading of 8.0. We have no idea what we're looking at.
So they could be doing it now. They probably are doing it now.
There's no doubt in my mind.
What would happen to the state of the church if the government were to come out with some kind of an alien disclosure? saying these are our cosmic brothers and sisters. They've been visiting us for thousands of years. They've been giving us technology. You know,
Right.
here they are. They look like us. They're in the flesh.
Right.
That sounds absolutely fantastic to us, but this is what was happening in Genesis 6.
Hey everybody, David here. Welcome to the second part of the David Heavener Live. And we do have Linda in the background there. Linda, if you could mute yourself just for 1 second, we're going to check something out here. Listen, I want to thank everyone that has been praying for this ministry. I want to thank you guys for the encouragement. I could not get by without it. I want to thank you for your donations. I want to thank you for your financial support. If you would like to get involved with this ministry, financially become a partner, please text the word chosen to 91999. That's chosen 91999, or go to lastevangelist.com. What do? We do shows like this. I do interviews. We have David Heavener Investigate. We have David Heavener TV. Everything that media could possibly manifest, we use it to get God's word out, to get God's truth. You know, people are starving. They're starving in this society because they're getting so much nonsense. I call it truth decay. They're getting truth decay. People, young children growing up in churches, the ones that are open, they don't even know who God is. They're being taught an apostate religion. You and I, the gatherers, we're willing to take the hits. We're on the front lines, but it takes prayer and it takes finances to make this work. And I want to thank you all for stepping up and being a part of this ministry. If you do order from Amazon, just put in Full Power Wisdom Inc. And it won't cost you anything, but it helps us out. And I appreciate everything that you're doing. We're talking to Linda tonight. Linda was possessed by a demon, and the doorway, I believe, was they call it the baby blues, postpartum depression. But now she had an encounter with a child. This child was possessed. First of all, can a child be possessed? Linda, you with me?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so
Sure am.
what was your experience with this child being possessed?
Yeah, well, I was with the child and her mother, and she was about, I'd say, 6 or 7 years old. And we decided to meet for lunch at Panera's at the mall. And it was just a lunch, and then we were going to take a walk through the mall and just have a good afternoon. And her little girl started really acting up. I mean, to the point where I turned to the mother and I said, "Do you mind if I discipline her?" And her mother's like, "No, go right ahead." And her mother had just been talking to me about how the little girl had been sexually abused by her uncle, by the mother's uncle. But I didn't put anything together with how the little girl was really acting up. I just thought, you know, she wasn't being patient. She was being very disrespectful to her mother, and I didn't like that. I mean, and she was acting up to the point where these 2 teenage girls came over and said, "Can we give the little girl a cookie?" Because she was making such a ruckus. I said, "We aren't giving her a cookie while she's acting like this." And so at one point, I put my hands on the little girl and I said, "You are going to sit here and put your legs down," because she was putting her legs up on the chair. And I said, "And we're going to finish talking before we go out to the mall." And the little girl was sitting to my left, and she turned to me like this. She goes, "I want to kill you," like that. Well, in that split second, it was like the Holy Spirit let me know that that was a demon. And I had my hands on her already. And I said it out loud. I said, "In the blood of Jesus, I demand you leave." And the little girl kind of went, and I said, "And now you're going to put your other leg down like this." And she put her leg down. And I said, and you're going to wait till your mother and I are finished talking. And I said it loud enough that I think the mother might have heard, but no one else, because I was kind of turned. The rest of the patrons were all behind me. And so then we walked through the mall, and I said, and I want you to, and I stooped down, I looked the little girl right in the eye, and I said, and we're going to be very respectful to your mother while we walk through this mall. I said, I'll hold your one hand and she'll hold the other. And she was fine as we walked through the mall. And at the other end of the mall, her mother said, why don't we now just stop and get some coffee? And we sat down then to just have some coffee, and a little girl turned to me and she goes, Linda, I want to let you know. She said, that wasn't me. She said, that was Satan that was saying,
Oh.
Yeah, the little girl
Okay,
even told me.
So how old was the little girl?
She was about 6 or 7.
Okay, and she just told you that whatever was in her was not her, that was a demon.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned sexual abuse. One of the doorways that Satan gets in to especially children, and I deal a lot with program multiples, satanic ritual abuse, survivors of, and people that have been in it, and they all will attest to the one thing, that it is a doorway that Satan enters into when there's sexual abuse. There's something about a child being abused sexually that all the lights get turned off, and it's a way that Satan enters. I need to ask a question real quick, Linda. Pastor Mike, I'm not sure if Pastor Mike is still there with me. If you are, let me know, buddy, because I have a question.
Yeah, I'm here, David.
Okay, can a child be possessed? Can a child have a demon inside of them?
Certainly.
Oh, because we are, when I say we, I've heard for so many years that children can't have, but let me read Mark 7:26-30. Pastor, you know this one. The Mark 7:26-30. The woman was a Greek born. Okay, let's get right to the point. She had a daughter that was demon possessed. Okay, she goes to Jesus and she says, Jesus, my daughter needs to be healed. She has a demon. All right. Verse 29, he told her, for such a reply, you may go, the demon has left your daughter. And why did Jesus say that to her? Because he said, I came for the children of Israel, not for the dogs, meaning not for someone like her. He wasn't really putting her down, but I don't want to go into that right now. He was saying that he had a mission to be on. He wasn't going to deal with this. She said, well, even I, the dogs, can have crumbs. In other words, I have enough faith that I know you're going to do something. Jesus said, your daughter will be healed. That demon has left your daughter. She went home and she found the demon, the daughter lying in bed, and the demon was gone. So, Pastor, how old was this girl in this? Do you think she was in the story?
Well, we would call her an adolescent. I would say that she was probably 8 to 10 years old. And the thing that we need to remember, David, you talk about this often, and the gatherers already know this, so let's connect the dots. So many children today are being raised in situations specifically to be ritually abused. They are being raised in that environment, and their souls, their minds are being programmed to receive this, and they don't stand a chance. That's why it's so wicked and so evil when children are possessed, and it's done intentionally.
Yeah.
God abhors that.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Pastor, for chiming in on that. I had to ask you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Linda, before we go, this child definitely was trying to tell you that what was in her was not really her. Okay. The mother said she was sexually abused. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Who, by the uncle, right?
By the mother's uncle.
By the mother's uncle. So what was the mother doing about this? I mean, was she taking any action? She seemed like a lame duck out there, not.
Well, she told me that she herself had been abused too.
So we're talking it's more than a generational curse. It's a generational pattern.
Yes.
And she probably wasn't real vocal about it, going to the authorities, taking authority over it, dealing with the uncle.
Yeah, and so I don't really know the rest of the details. Yeah, I really,
Okay.
that was all she told me. Mhm.
Okay. And so as far as you know, the little girl is still got the demon, and who knows, she may still be being abused at this point, right?
Well, I lost touch with the mother and the child,
Okay.
and I've actually moved to another location myself.
Yeah.
But I told the mother what I really believed what was going on,
Okay.
and yeah, so I told the mother exactly what I did in demanding that it leave. So
Yeah.
in the blood.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So Linda, I appreciate having you on. God bless you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being open and honest. It's
Yeah.
hard to say what you said. Few people can do it, and you've blessed a
Mhm.
lot of people. I can tell you
Mhm.
in chat.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your ministry. Thank you for
Mhm.
everything you're doing. And I'm going to send a link out to people how to get in touch with you.
Okay.
Do you have an email that you would like to? Well, here's what I do. I'm going to give you give me the email, and I'm going to send it out to people instead of broadcasting it. How's that?
Okay.
All right.
Oh, you want me to do that later then? Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that later, and people
Mhm.
can get in touch with you.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for being with us. God bless you.
Thank
and,
you so much for having me, and God bless you and your family too, David.
You're welcome.
Uh-huh.
Take care. God bless.
Thank you.
Okay.
God bless you.
Okay, that's Linda. Linda was so kind, to be honest, and to pour out her heart about what the experiences she's had with demonic possession, and also running into this child that was possessed. Now, I want to say something to you. I have run into children that I believe were possessed by demons. I didn't even know them, and I prayed over them, but I did not get near them because I had no right, because I didn't know the parent, they didn't know me. I was not going to touch the child, and don't you ever touch a child with the excuses I was praying for them. Do not do it. But we don't need to touch people. You saw in this account of Mark 7:26 that the woman had faith. Jesus snapped his finger and said, that devil's gone. You see, folks, we don't need to throw holy water and perform all these rituals and do a song and dance and run across, hot coals. We just need to know that we have the power of God in us, that any demon has to leave at our command. Whether our command is from a distance, whether our command is close, whether our command is even silent. I talk about silent evictions. There was this little girl in this store, and I could not get near her. God said, do not touch her, don't go near her, but pray that demon out. I prayed a silent eviction, and that demon, I'm telling you, left that child. The child just kind of went, lame. Now, I didn't know anything about the child. I went on, never saw her again. But you can see children from a distance. We can pray for them, and we can pray the demons out of them, because I guarantee you, if you see a child acting out and you see a child that looks like they have the devil in them, 9 times out of 10, they're being either physically, emotionally, or sexually abused. Usually it's the physically and sexually that really opens that door and lets the demons in. All right. So before we go to prayer and before we go to praise reports, I want to talk to you guys about your doorway. Okay. No matter what it is, and I want you to try this one little thing. Okay, it's simple. I know it's hard, but it's simple. If it's worry, you give it to God, you put it in a box, you give it to the Lord. Do not let that box open up. You say, God, this is yours. I have no right to this worry. I have no right to it. I can't touch it. Jesus said not to worry. If you have fear, you put the fear in the box, you give it to God, you're done. Don't take that box back. If you have an addiction, you give that box, you put it in there, you give it to God. It's a locked box. You do not take it back. I know we fall. I know we slip. I'm guilty of that. But you take it again, you put it in the box until one day that box never comes back. One day that demon gets evicted, that door gets locked, and he's bringing 100,000 of his minions with him, and he can't get back in because he knows that you're a true child of God, that you've wised up, and you're not going to deal with demons anymore in your life, in your family's life, okay? This is the first step to just, you've heard about giving it to God, put it in a box, give it to God. I have no right to it. Folks, I have this worry problem. I start thinking about things, my mind, and I justify it by saying, oh, it's a solution I'll come up with. Hogwash. There's no solution. I give it to God. God has the solution. I'm not going to come up with the answer, especially since I've been awake all night, just sitting staring at the ceiling. No, you take all that, you give it to God, you pray over it, and you say, God, I'm done with it. It's yours. That goes for anything, even with the scars of physical and sexual abuse. The pain, as deep as that is, you put it in that box, you lock it up, you give it to God. God doesn't want you to have it. He wants that. He will not ever give it back to you. We always end up taking it back, but we're not going to. This is it. Demons evicted, doors locked. We as the children of God, the gatherers, are delivered.